My name is Дэвид Harris. I'm CEO of American Jewish Committee, and I'm standing in Kiev, in Ukraine. It's 10 degrees today outside, and here we are at what is called in Ukrainian Babin Yar, in Russian Babi Yar. It's at once an accursed and a sacred place. Here, on September 29th and 30th, 1941, in the span of less than 48 hours, 33,771 Jewish children, Jewish women, and Jewish men were brought to this site by Nazi Germany, by the Einsatz group and the killing squads of the German military, and by local Ukrainian collaborators. They were brought here with their belongings, which they were told to bring. They were stripped of their belongings. They were eventually stripped of their clothing, and they were put into the ravines surrounding this spot, and they were shot, one by one by one. The Holocaust of bullets, as it was called. 33,771 Jews. People who had hopes and dreams, people who had fears, ambitions, all of them extinguished on this spot in less than 48 hours. But the story was not to end there either. Tens of thousands more Jews were brought here in the months and years to follow, and they too were killed. And non-Jews, Soviet prisoners and others were also brought to this spot. But the story doesn't end there either. We say in the Jewish biblical tradition of Job, "O earth, cover not my blood. Let my voice have no rest." But the Germans tried to cover up the blood and tried to silence the voices. The Action Squad 1005, the Nazi effort to eliminate all evidence of the systematic murder of the Jews in Central and Eastern Europe, came here in order to try and destroy the evidence before the war ended. And then after the war, the Soviet authorities restored their power here. And for their own reasons, even though they were enemies of the Nazis from 1941 to 1945, they too covered up the blood, and they too silenced the voices. And instead they brought garbage here and construction vehicles here. And it wasn't until 1961 when a 28-year-old Soviet poet, a non-Jew by the way, Yevgeny Yevtushenko, wrote a poem in a span of just 5 hours after hearing what had occurred here. Nad Babim Yarem Pamятников нет was the opening line of his poem Babi Yar. Here at Babi Yar there are no monuments. But even then, there was still the covering of the blood and the silence. And it wasn't until more recently that this site was memorialized more appropriately. It was 3 months ago that some of us from AJC came here, myself included, and we were in the audience as the presidents of Ukraine, of Germany, of Israel, and the secretaries of state of the United States all spoke here and memorialized what has now become a more fitting tribute to the memory of the tens of thousands of Jews and others who were systematically murdered here. Even so, there are underlying tensions about the Ukrainian and the Russian narratives as they compete in the larger geopolitical environment about who did what to whom. But this site of Babi Yar, is a site that must be permanently embedded for all of us, especially at a time when memory of the Holocaust is fading, when there are those who are trying to rewrite the history of the Holocaust, when there are some who are abusing Holocaust references for political purposes in today's world. This site, Babi Yar, which tragically is the site of a record of mass killing until this point in the war in September of 1941. This site of the ashes of tens of thousands of Jews must never, ever be forgotten. And I can assure you, at the American Jewish Committee, it never will.